Record. All right, so we're joined from Horn Lake, Mississippi, by my friend Dania Christian, the owner of Audrey Giselle Couture there in the Memphis area. But she's originally from down here in Pearl, Mississippi. So thank you so much for joining us. I got a room full here with me
You're
at
welcome.
Velma Jackson High School. We're recording this for our friends at Rosa Scott, Germantown, Ridgeland High Schools, and our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for joining us. We are in the manufacturing career cluster, which we did just say is also it's not just the big factories like we know here in Canton. It is also the the production of clothing. Pretty much everything we wear had to be manufactured by somebody, and that's
Right,
where you are an expert in, and you're Audrey Gazelle Couture there in Horn Lake.
right.
So, before we, we talk about your business, take us back to your background. You are from Pearl. And then how'd you get into this? Because it's, this isn't really something you get a degree for.
Right. So actually I started off in pageants. Just in high school, I started off in like pageants. So I've always kind of, been in the fashion industry. I just love fashion. Once I actually went to college, I started off in photography, just because that was like that was one background within that field, that environment that I wanted to go into. Once I started taking some of the classes, I just realized that it may have not been necessarily for me once I got a firsthand experience with it. So I actually met one of my designer friends that I'm still pretty close with now. She actually introduced me to fashion design. I knew her through a mutual friend. I just saw her doing some of the work, just as far as like beginner sewing. I didn't know how to sew at all going into college, had a
Wow.
machine. And I think it was my sophomore year, I actually took the beginner sewing class. So that was about 15 years ago now. So I started from there. Once I took that first class, I realized, okay, yeah, this is, and they actually had a program, a degree for it. I was like, okay, yeah, this is definitely for me.
Wow.
So just started from there. I just kept going with it, even outside of college. I just continued to like teach myself new things because it's always something to learn about whatever field that you're into is always something to learn. So here I am now with actually in my studio this time. I have my own studio where I meet my clients that want custom. I do bridal alterations, men's
Wow.
alterations. I just, branched off into, have different outlets within fashion design that I just learned from over the years.
That's awesome. Now, a lot of females and a lot of men too, are, they're always saying, I like the whole fashion thing. I want to start my own business too. You could be a
Right.
great tailor. You could be a great great at alterations. You could be great at designs, but it
Right.
also takes business sense. You can't just open the door and say, "Hey, here I am." Um,
Right.
because especially a lot of young people that I see, one of their biggest mistakes is they're just trying to be the cheapest. And that is a
Yeah.
huge mistake. You can't think like a 17-year-old. You have to think about the people you're trying to sell to. So
Yep.
talk about some of those strategies, because obviously you're great at what you do because we've seen some of your work and some of your clothing, but you got to be able to run a business too. So
Yeah.
you just talk about your strategies and how you've learned that.
Definitely. So I would just say I like it's basically 50-50 when it comes to the just being an entrepreneur, just any field. You have to know the technical side and you also have to know the business side too in order to be successful. On the business side, you want to make sure, even though like you're charging a certain amount, you want to make sure that you're actually making a profit off of it. So you don't want, just giving away products or giving away services, just all that hard work for nothing, and it'll show in the end when you're really tired and not seeing anything from it. So like I see a lot of younger kids, they're super talented, and they want to just get the client, they just want to get the exposure. Sometimes that's okay, but not too much. So you start off, if you just want to get your name out there, start off with lower prices, that's fine. But eventually you have to see some type of, profit off of it. So just I just always suggest like just researching prices from other business owners in your field around you, see what they're charging, and just kind of go from there. You don't have to like be just like or charge exactly what they charge, but just, make sure you're making something off of it instead of just giving things away.
Yeah, and on top of that, you have to show initiative. You can't just
Right.
say, I guess I'm gonna go to work today. Especially when you're starting out, it's you have to learn everything. You have to do
Oh
every
yeah.
aspect of the business, and you're not going to sell anything if you're not out working.
Right.
Especially in your field, in your business, those dresses aren't going to make themselves. If somebody wants to order by a deadline, you've got to make that deadline. You don't have anybody else to do it for you,
Right.
especially prom season and wedding season. So talk about some of the products that you specialize in. I know you can do pretty much anything, but what's really your niche, and what type of products have you really fell in love with that you like designing?
As far as my niche, and I honestly, when I first started designing in college, when I first learned how to sew, I said, okay, I really like, I love pageant wear. I came from the pageant world, modeling. I love formal wear. I always did. So when I first started, I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn how to make a formal gown. I did a little bit, but it wasn't much. So it's like once I learned more, just gain more skills throughout over the years, I realized that formal wear really was like something that excites me. So my first actual formal gown was my wedding dress in 2018. So from there, people saw my work and they asked about prom, which I was like, okay, I don't know about prom. I never did a prom dress, but then when you think about it, prom dresses these days basically look like bridal gowns. So I was like, okay, I'll give it a try. I did my that first year, 2019. I did my first like area for prom, which I only did four. That was my limit. I didn't want to do any more than that, so I did four. And then just from there, it increased. And like this past season, earlier this year, altogether I did 40. So it
Wow.
definitely increased. I enjoyed it. I had to hire an assistant seamstress to help me. So I have her pretty much here at least once a week because I've taught her certain things, and she's always been willing to help, and it's always good to have that person. You kind of need it. So uh, she's always there, like whenever I need her. But I would definitely say formal wear is my thing. That's my go to now. Bridal gowns, prom gowns, anything formal.
Yeah, and that's what's so cool about your business is not only do you do alterations for
Mm-hmm.
people that maybe want to wear my mother's wedding dress. We're not the same size. You can do things like that, but you also come up with your own brand new things and sell
Right,
those right out of the box. So
right,
talk about, because that's kind of interesting because you don't really see that combo a lot because you
yeah,
do make your very own stuff, but you also design things that are that somebody wants you to design. So I think that's
right.
kind of cool. So how does that work?
So I started off with custom out of college. I moved to DC, started I was interning teaching younger kids between 6 to 12 how to sew. So I was doing while I was there teaching those classes, I was still learning, custom wear, not necessarily formal, but just custom in general. So that whole process, like that whole just area of the fashion world was just different. I mean, it's just taking basically just the fabric. Well, starting at the sketch, taking the sketch, going to the fabric, like just, working everything from the bottom, from the very, the threads up to the actual product. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work, but it's, something I enjoy doing. So with that knowledge, I started at Davis Bridal in 2018. So with having that knowledge going into being an alterations manager for a big bridal company, bridal shop, it helped me like just a smooth transition into alterations. So it was it was a big transition, but it opened that other door of like a new service that I could offer because I learned it while I was there. They just gave me the opportunity, even though I knew zero things about alterations. They allowed me to come in, learn, and just help the company, help grow the company because I had that background of custom wear.
Yeah, and that's what I would suggest to anybody of any entrepreneur, especially one that wants to get in the clothing industry, is work in the industry first. Learn the business, learn how things are done. David's Bridal, that's a large corporate chain. That's a great place to get your feet wet and learn the business first.
Yeah, definitely is. I would highly suggest it. Even if you see on their requirements, they say you have to have this skill, that skill. I didn't have any of the skills that they said on there. They just got me. As long as I was able to get into the interview, it was, that's all I needed. Just that, just getting in that doorstep and showing them that I was willing to learn whatever it was that I needed to.
Absolutely. Now, before I get to the students' questions, I do have one more.
Mhm.
Is what technological advances are you seeing in clothing manufacturing? Because obviously, every field, no matter what it is, even if it's just as primitive as running a sewing machine, there's still a lot of technological advances. Are there any ways for a computer design of a garment first, and then it's designed, or anything else that something new we don't even know about?
Yeah, well, they some still do like what is called AutoCAD. They use it in engineering. I
Okay.
learned it in college as well, but it's not not my area necessarily. I do a lot of when I make my own patterns, I do a lot of flat pattern making, which is I guess you could see like in a blueprint or something of a house. It looks pretty much the same way. So it's basically just drawing everything out on paper versus like doing in the computer. It's a lot of designers that I know that still use AutoCAD as for their skills for their pattern making process, but it's a lot of technology out there. They even have I know Joann's is they're advertising an actual machine. It's called the Ditto machine, where you just tell them what pattern you're trying to make, or they have a list of patterns that you can choose from. You just select it, and it actually prints out the pattern for you,
Wow.
or it cuts out the pattern for you. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's a lot of different technology that's is growing in this industry to make
That's
everything
awesome.
easier.
That's awesome. Well, I do have some questions from the students, and some of these are great. I'll get to as many of these as I can. And
Okay.
these are all ninth graders. This person is Mariah Harris, and she asked, "How many failed designs have you done before you got your flow?"
How many failed designs?
Yes.
Oh, I can't even. I can't even remember. I mean, it's gonna be failures throughout the process. I mean, if you just say if you grow, like I said, I'm always learning. So if there's mistakes that I make, I just learn from that mistake. It's probably been a lot since that was like 15 years ago. So I can't even count. That's how many mistakes that were made. But I always try to correct it, learn from it, move forward. Just never give up. That's my thing. Just always ambitious, just keep going. If that's what you are passionate about, just figure it out, learn from the mistake and keep going.
Yeah, and that's a great segue to this question. He's got a couple, but this is Javion Fields, and he asked, "What do you think is your greatest strength as a fashion designer?"
My greatest strength, I would definitely say, and this it's so general because it can fall into any field, would be like customer service. It's you just have to build that relationship with the person that you're working with. I learned that from being a manager at Hollister. That was like one of my first management jobs. From being there, car sales, they will trust you so much more if they feel that you're honest with them, or the integrity is there. That's like my main thing, and it's not even just me like just forcing it. I've always been just naturally, I always naturally just deliver customer service just because I want to feel the same way they feel. I want them to feel how I feel.
Yeah, and that's a great point because, again, we go back to the entrepreneurial thing. People say they want to start their own business, but then they get mad when we want them to do a presentation in front of 5 people. You've got to be able to speak. You've got to be
Yeah,
able to talk. You've got to be able to sell. You
definitely.
could have the best designs in the world. You could have the coolest idea in the world. But if you can't present that verbally,
Yep.
it's going to be very tough to be successful. So I think that is one of the most lost traits in America is the ability to do face-to-face sales. And it is so important
Yeah.
from a customer service standpoint.
And I was like that when before I got into car sales in Texas. I had never did sales. I was so terrified, but I said, okay, I got to start somewhere. And
Yeah.
I ended up the top salesperson in Houston during that
Wow.
time car sales. So it's just getting your feet wet and at least giving yourself that opportunity. I just feel like anything, like if I want to learn a new trade or a new skill, I'll try it at least once. So that's just, I just say go for it. Just step out there and do it.
Yeah, and his other question was, how do you overcome a lack of motivation in your job?
You just have to go back, think back to what made you passionate about it in the first place.
Oh wow.
Figure out what it was that brought you to that point of excitement. Think about the exciting times that you've had during, that whole career, just whatever interests you in general. So I just figure out I like being around art. I like being around music. So I know if I'm ever like just feeling down, I'll get into my studio. If studio is just not doing it, I'll go out like, somewhere downtown or something, just something that surrounds me with something that makes me happy. Just take yourself out of that negative space, whatever you feel like is making everything negative, just step away from it. Just, go to what makes you happy.
That's awesome. This is a good one. This is Makia Luckett, and she asked, did you have what type of problems did you have starting a business as a Black woman?
I would say just getting people to just like notice my work. And it just goes back to like me being kind of timid at first to step out there. I like I said, I was younger. I was kind of shy with like new things, but I knew that if I didn't, just because I'm a minority, if I didn't really just be more vocal, I would never, no one would ever notice me, regardless of my work. If you can't be vocal about it, nobody's ever going to notice you. You have to be, you don't have to be the face of your brand, but people need to know like who is behind it. You don't have to show your face like all the time in ads or anything. You just have to, people want to see who's behind the sewing machine or behind whatever it is that you do.
This is Jakethia Brown, and she asked, what accomplishment are you most proud of with your company?
Oh, let's see. I would say, I guess recently, with the Best Mississippi Awards, I was just nominated for Fashion Designer of the Year. So that was a first for me, just being nominated for any award within my field. That's, I feel like, okay, I'm doing this, even though I've been designing for 15 years. Like once people start realizing like who you are, acknowledging you, then it hits a little different.
Absolutely, and that was well deserved. That was really cool. I think you're going to see a lot more of those. This is Michaela Dawson, one of our cheerleaders here, and she asked, "What type of training and education would you need to get into clothing?"
I like I said, I started off in photography, but I mean, it was still the same, some of the same classes. I would definitely say, okay.
All right, we had a little technical difficulties, but we are back. So the question was, I don't even remember now. It was the type of training and education you would need to get into
Okay.
clothing.
Okay. So like I said, I started off in photography, but once I transitioned over to fashion design, I just went into Mississippi State's fashion design program. They basically, on the design side, they basically taught us just like, beginner sewing classes. And as we moved up, they went into AutoCAD, which was where I learned how to, do pattern making on the computer. And we also learned flat pattern making design. So it's a few like technical classes that you would want to learn, as well as not only did they have us do the design and merchandising side or aspect of fashion, we also were required to do or obtain a business, a degree in business as well. So that I definitely was grateful for, just because, like I said, you want to know both sides, not just technical, not just designing, but you also want to know the business side, so that you're, once you actually get out there into the field, that you're able to manage both sides.
Yeah, and I know Southern Miss also has a fashion design degree, and all the community colleges
Yeah,
have the 1 2 year program. So if you don't want to do the 4 year college thing, you can get the certificate and start
yeah,
working immediately, and then learn the business. It's got one more from the
definitely.
students. This is
Okay.
Joel Fleming, and he asked, "How do you see yourself growing your business in the future, and what plans would you have to get there?"
I just working, really just getting myself out there more, even more than I have. So more recognition. I've actually, since I have my studio, I was able to just, advertise more on like Google. A lot of my clients that come to me now, they always ask like, how did you hear about me? And they either say Google or like Davis Bridal or just word of mouth. So just get my name out there more. I went to some like bridal boutiques, just because they had one, the actual Davis Bridal location that I worked at, they just recently closed. So a lot of people still need, somewhere to go for alteration. So I just, touch like every boutique in the area, even a little bit outside the area, because I don't, there are not that many tailors or, seamstresses in the area.
Absolutely. Now, before we go, first of all, tell us where to find your business, because we may have some young ladies needing some prom dresses.
Yeah.
So, and you're a great Instagram follow. So tell us how to find you and how they can get in touch with you.
So my actual Instagram page is Giselle Audrey Co. So GISELLEAUDREYCO. You'll see most of my work there. I'm on TikTok, DC the Tailor, DCTHETAILOR. I just, you can find me there. I can also, I'll give you my information as well, but that's where most of my work is. I just recently started advertising for prom. I'm only accepting 10 custom this year, just because I'm getting ready to uh introduce my prom collection. So
Oh, wow.
something major in store. Yes, yes. I'm
That is
excited
awesome.
about it.
But that's something, if these young ladies want a prom dress, that's something to start looking for now,
Yeah,
because they're definitely going to get great quality when they deal with you. Now, before we go,
yeah,
we thank you. We're almost out of time. Thank you so much, as always, for joining
yeah.
us.
No
But
problem.
even if these young people aren't interested in fashion design at all, or maybe they might be maybe a little bit interested in being even just a part-time entrepreneur.
Right,
You're a Black woman from Mississippi. You grew up in the area, so you grew up with a lot of the same circumstances, but yet you've become
right,
extremely successful with a great skill that's never going to go away. So what can
right.
these young people do now to follow in your footsteps to be just as successful as someone like you?
I would say just, if you, even if you don't, if you want to branch off into the fashion industry, if you want to learn how to sew, you can find sewing classes. I offer sewing classes. Do, not even necessarily internships, but if you have like someone around you within your field that, offers at that age, if they offer, jobs or like kind of like internships for you to get your chance to work in that industry, definitely take it. I had a high schooler last year, or last prom season, that came in specifically for prom season. She learned how to hand
Wow.
sew, like we worked on prom dresses. She was great. Just, little things like that. Just, it helps. It helps. And just to be in that environment, they actually see hands on, like if this is something that I really want to do, you never know until you get that experience.
Absolutely. And even, and there's so many entrepreneurs like yourself that are willing to help young people to show them the ropes,
Yeah.
because we aren't going to live forever. So,
Right.
as always, Dana Christian, all the way from Horn Lake, Mississippi. Thank you as always for taking some time to join us. Check her out, Audrey Giselle
Yeah.
Couture. Good stuff there. We'll talk to you soon, my friend.
All right. Thank you.
See ya.